fascinating facts about plague doctors. On account of their particular covers, plague specialists have stayed an image of repulsiveness for many years. Highlighted in all types of workmanship, from artistic creations to video games, these bird-like experts never truly slip from the open consciousness. It is most likely safe to state that if Listverse needed to pick one image to speak to it, the plague cover would be it. Notwithstanding their fame, or maybe as a result of it, there are numerous misguided judgments about plague specialists. Beneath, we'll separate truth from fiction in a very non-us-driven rundown for a chain. Black Death. Despite the fact that plague specialists were plainly and over related with the Black Death, a stupendous aggregate of zero specialists wore nose veils during the period. The Dark Death is the name given to the greatest pandemic in written history, which killed up to 200 million individuals from 1346 to 1353. From that point forward, researchers have been attempting to distinguish the genuine ailment, and bubonic plague has for some time been viewed as the most probable culprit. Plague specialists with their renowned clothing didn't show up until 1619. The ensemble was planned by Charles D. Lorme. And still, at the end of the day, it was not generally utilized until quite a few years after the fact during the plague of 16. The most probable clarification regarding why these outfits became related with the Black Death is the doubt that bubonic plague was the reason. Notwithstanding, that hypothesis has been raised doubt about in later years. The look these outfits might not have existed simultaneously as the Black Death, however they existed in the end. So the undeniable inquiry is, why? Basically, this was mankind's first endeavor at the hazardous materials suit. The full-length coat was made of wax and calfskin, which was intended to be impermeable. It secured a shirt, breeches, and boots. The specialists' wide overflowed caps should flag their calling, on the off chance that the remainder of the ensemble was excessively inconspicuous, and their sticks were utilized to look at casualties without contacting them. Specialists likewise utilized these sticks to motion toward their partners and battle off upset family members. But unmistakably, the most eminent part of the uniform was its angled veil, which has a legitimate clarification. Recall this was structured before specialists began washing their hands. So everybody was all the while attempting to make sense of how infection really spread. It was speculated that harmed air, otherwise known as miasma, was the reason, which is the means by which the covers came to exist. Loaded up with herbs and flavors, the veil was planned to overwhelm or muffle the miasma, along these lines securing the doctor. Although we presently realize that you can't just stop an airborne ailment by placing more stuff noticeable all around, we ought to at any rate recognize that they weren't totally misguided. Air can be contaminated, and filtration can fix it. They simply did it seriously. Also, they didn't stop there. The smoldering look. While patients clearly had it harsh during the plague, their primary care physicians didn't have it much better. Notwithstanding the danger of getting the infection, just as the social disgrace, they had a horrendous encounter simply wearing the uniform. Anyone who has ever worn a cover for Halloween realizes how gross and irritating it very well may be following a couple of hours. The structure of these plague veils made it practically outlandish for the specialists to address others, which added to the effectively prominent ejection of the cover. Be that as it may, for a little gathering of French specialists, saliva and jabber were most likely not as worried as the flames inside their covers. Expanding on the hypothesis of miasma, some plague specialists in France set the scented material inside their covers ablaze in the expectations that the smoke would assist with clearing the awful air. Unsurprisingly, the fire method never truly got on. Treated everyone given that the plague was infectious to such an extent that specialists required master gear, and that no one truly thought about destitute individuals, it is anything but difficult to accept that plague specialists just treated the individuals who could manage the cost of it. However, this was not the situation. The poor might not have had the option to manage the cost of treatment, yet the plague was infectious to the point that the rich couldn't bear to let their ruined partners get it. For this explanation, plague specialists were employed and paid by town committees to treat everybody with expectations of totally killing the malady town by town. In any case, that didn't prevent the specialists from charging patients as well. In spite of the fact that the position paid well, it was commonly taken by three kinds of individuals: new specialists, the individuals who battled in private practice, and volunteers who weren't prepared yet were happy to give it a go. In numerous cases, the towns gave extra advantages, for example, a free home, installment of costs, and an annuity. Thus, plague specialists who in fact treated patients for nothing really left on worthwhile careers. Of course, current specialists rake in some serious cash as well. Treatment options. The plague specialist network was made for the most part out of dismissed specialists and non-doctors when even the best clinical professionals knew diddly squat. Thus, a large number of the medicines were, indeed, awful. The contaminated poor transformed into guinea pigs as plague specialists turned out to be progressively disappointed and inventive with their medications. Nonetheless, none of those treatments helped in the end. Bloodletting, intentionally draining a vein to diminish ill will, was constantly a well-known decision. Eating things like fruit puree, mustard, or mint sauce was accepted to help also. So could filling the house with fragrances. On the other hand, you could take some food things, for example, onion, herbs, pigeon, or snake, slash them up, and rub them on the patient. Now and then, arsenic and mercury were taken care of to contaminated people. Mercury was likewise used to cover the patient before bubbling him in the stove, in spite of the fact that this was typically a final retreat, regardless of whether it was planned to be or not. Additionally, there was consistently the alternative of covering patients in their own dime or dropping them in the sewer short term on the off chance that they couldn't create enough of their own waste. Data collection. Everyone realizes that information talks in the cutting-edge age. Regardless of whether you're attempting to influence the result of a political crusade or end the spread of coronavirus, information is fundamental on the off chance that you are going to win. Obviously, administrations of the 17th century additionally understood the significance of information, since its assortment was a significant piece of being a plague specialist. You can envision the sort of information they gathered: suspected cases, affirmed cases, fatalities, restored patients, and the sky is the limit from there. This permitted plague specialists to begin precluding incapable medications, in spite of the fact that they never truly focused in on treatments that worked. It was abnormal for the time, however they likewise performed dissections to study the impacts of this condition on the human body. As they were frequently with patients in their last minutes, plague specialists were additionally required to record wills and affirm in court if necessary. Obviously, plague specialists were beginners when contrasted with information gatherers in this day and age. Pariahs in social orders over the world, specialists have quite often been held in high respect. Among the most accomplished citizenry, they can reduce your anguish and spare the lives of your friends and family. The entirety of this generally makes them mainstream. For plague specialists, however, it was an alternate story. They invested such a great amount of energy with the contaminated, which frequently made the specialists become wiped out too, that others were careful about associating with them. At the point when utilized, these specialists were not permitted to blend with the overall population. Moreover, they needed to self-isolate for an all-inclusive period when they were finished treating patients. Considerably from that point forward, they were commonly treated as outsiders. Plague specialists were disregarded to meander the avenues of the towns they had spared, or to move away with expectations of beginning another life. Missing doctors. Plague specialists were generally knowledgeable, generously compensated, popular, notable, and very much associated. Regardless of whether they were horrible specialists, they likely originated from sensibly rich families. They treated the political class and the elites, and they participated in lawful procedures. Unmistakably, plague specialists were notable individuals, which is the reason it is irregular to such an extent that various of them disappeared. Albeit authentic records from several years prior will consistently have holes, these normally identify with poor people. Wealthier citizenry had a wide range of records in banks, land libraries, the courts, thus on. Plague specialists were all around archived and held under an attentive gaze to guarantee that they didn't break their confinement provision. Regardless of this, they would once in a while simply vanish. Plague specialists were very much archived and held under a careful gaze to guarantee that they didn't break their confinement statement. Regardless of this, they would periodically just disappear. Some were hijacked for recover, despite the fact that these people were frequently quickly returned. Others essentially evaporated off the substance of the earth. They may have fled, passed on of the plague, or been grabbed to treat individuals in another city. It is presumably a mix of all three. But we'll never be certain what befallen them. For some more spine-shivering secrets of missing individuals, click here for 10 eerie last words of people who then vanished without a trace. Furthermore, on the off chance that you have a hypothesis with respect to where the missing infection specialists went, share it in the remarks.